Somebody else want to share?
Well, I noticed at the beginning, the two that I was watching, I think they knew the answer, and so they were kind of driven by knowing the answer, but somewhere through there they stopped. That wasn't important to them anymore. Right. It was the discussion and understanding, which I thought for those students was really amazing, because a lot of times they just shut off. I know the answer, that's it. But this, they did get into it, and the answer wasn't important towards the end, which was very interesting.
And maybe that's why we're reaching not to the higher kids who are like, oh, I know this.
Yeah.
We get the kids who are sort of, this makes sense, this speaks to them more.
But I noticed the two that I was watching, they were very enthusiastic about all the problems. And then it got to the diagram for the cream and the chocolate and the 9 squares and the 18 squares. And it just really confused him. And he was starting to change his mind, because then he thought, well, maybe I was wrong. But she was very shy, so she wasn't, manipulating him to see what the problem was with that. And so hopefully after that discussion, he saw that that was the wrong answer. And so it would be very interesting to see if anybody changes their answer to that 9 and 18. Because he seemed to, he was going along just fine. And then that 9 and 18, and he was just a little confused.
I have a question. So the students did the work, but they were not given corrections back. They were not given, okay. One of the things I found interesting, two of the children that I was watching, Timothy and OC, I think was the other's name. When that problem about the chocolate, the cream in the chocolate came up, the first thing they did was to draw a little diagram on their paper. One of them drew blocks, the other one drew like a number line. I don't know if they thought, okay, I'm going to make sure that I'm right before I start this discussion. And then when they started the discussion, again, it wasn't, well, that person is wrong, but, they must have been thinking this. It was the fact that they went into that, which you originally said. They went into a discussion about what the other person must have been thinking. And then listening to the exchange between the two of them, there was a little switch in their thinking of one of the students from listening to his partner. Because you heard oh, yeah, that's what he was thinking. And I thought that was really powerful to watch children do that. I think that was the only thing that not the only thing, but one of the things that I thought was really interesting about the whole thing.
One of the things I found too was with one of the same students, but along that same row, using the manipulatives on the third problem. The one boy put in manipulatives 3, 1, 3, 1, 3 of one, color 1, and he was going along, and I think he almost got to the end or got them all down there, and then he had looked at the problem again and said, oh, it's 2, and he changed it, and he fixed it so it really matched the answer. And so that was great to see. He fixed his own, answer with manipulatives. And another one, his partner drew little boxes and put little letters in each box as he went along. And others down the row did manipulatives 2 and 3, 2 and 3, 2 and 3, 2 and 3. So they were almost following the 2 different answers of the first problem, where it was the the diagonal versus the lined up across the row, and it was the same sort of difference, and it was really interesting because they were doing different.
Yeah, I think that just goes to show that if they're not given that space to share how they get an answer, the other kids aren't exposed to that, and then they don't ever have that tool. So, sometimes I think teachers expect, oh, well, if they know how to solve it, they'll find their own way to solve it, they'll use their own ways. But it's like by sharing, they get to share, like the other students are sharing their ways, and then they become their own. And so it's great that they can just increase that, their kind of like their toolbox, I guess, is what, just like now we've learned other ways to kind of understand how they get to use it. So I just think it's a great thing, yeah.
And also 2 other boys I was observing at first seemed to me, well, it was obvious to me, they thought of everything in numbers and mathematically and with computational type solutions and not visually. And the other people were doing more visual later. And I don't know what they did at first, but I mean, these boys wrote down things like 3 + 1 = 4, 12 divided by 4 = 3, and they had the answer. And it was really fun to see what they approached first and what they used first. And it was really nice that they could have paper to draw and write and manipulatives later too. So they could approach whichever one was more comfortable for them first.
Okay, I think I really like your conclusion of the lesson. You mentioned that you want them to go back to make a marks edit and revise your answer, kind of like a writing process. So math is not a discrete subject anymore. So all the learnings are merged together. And throughout the lesson, because math is kind of like you bring order to the chaotic world. Mm-hmm. And those students using different ways, using their different imaginations, and they try to explore to find different way to bring the order, to find a neat number answer, which is really great to see. And they also get a chance to see other people's doing and a way to raise their level of exploration and thinking. Really great.